okay, I see what's really good. You're trying to eliminate the competition. You know, because at first you retire, you know, then get me off the label. Now you're back rapping again.
After everything I've done for you, after always having your back, why wipe me out? After everything I've done for you, you gonna sit there with a life raft and watch me drown? After everything I did for you, you not gonna talk to me?
Felt that JayZ, Beanie Sigel was the
Yeah, he was fired.
and they will only let Beanie Sigel only sell so many records. This came from an executive. But Benny, you couldn't be bigger than JayZ on JayZ's label.
The hip-hop world is buzzing right now, and all eyes are on Beanie Sigel. The former Roc-A-Fella artist just gave a raw and unfiltered interview that's shaking up the entire music industry. He didn't just talk, he exposed. Sigel opened up about what really happened behind the scenes while he was signed to one of the most legendary rap labels ever, and the timing couldn't be worse. JayZ is already dealing with rumors linking him to ongoing drama in the music world. And now this. Sigel's words hit hard. He describes a version of JayZ that's very different from the image fans have admired for years. Instead of lifting people up, Sigel accuses him of using his power to get rid of anyone who seemed like competition.
Always thought that like we breathe, but to maliciously plot to who.
Beanie Sigel isn't just talking, he's giving real details. He says JayZ wasn't only focused on making big money moves. According to Sigel, Jay was secretly working behind the scenes to silence certain voices and stop some artists from ever getting their moment to shine. And he's not the only one speaking up. Since the interview came out, other respected people in hip-hop have hinted that they went through similar things. This might be bigger than just old drama. Word is, some people have already tried to shut this down before it spreads, but Beanie isn't backing down. He's standing by his story, no matter who it upsets. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any messier, Sigel brings up Dame Dash. He's backing up what Dame said last month, where Dame hinted that shady stuff went on at the label and it stopped Youngtown before they even had a chance to succeed.
Beans was getting ready. We thought he was going to go to jail for a couple years. He was on trial. So I was trying to make 4 albums. I was more bothered when Beans chose to go with Jay. That one hurt. Because I'd done a lot and prepared. I chose State Property over Rockware. And I wanted to just roll out with State Property. But it almost like he tricked Beans to shelf him and left his life up to me for doing that. But I had him. You know what I mean? Like, that was my new Jay.
Dame Dash had big plans for Beanie Sigel. He saw him as the future of Roc-A-Fella, the next one to lead the label into a new era. But now, both Dame and Beanie say that dream was stolen, and it wasn't by accident. Dame admits that trusting the wrong people in charge was a huge mistake, one that cost him more than just money. What looked like support from JayZ, Beanie now says, was actually something darker, quiet sabotage happening behind the scenes. For the first time, Beanie is admitting that he ignored Dame's real support while chasing after Jay's flashy promises. Promises that now seem fake. In his raw new comments, Beanie gives some strong hints. He says every time one of his projects started gaining momentum, Jay would just happen to drop a surprise release that stole the spotlight. Beanie doesn't believe it was a coincidence, and neither do some industry insiders. People are starting to connect the dots, saying that every time Beanie was building a buzz, something shady would happen to slow him down. These claims aren't just rumors. They're coming from people who were actually there. And now, serious questions are being raised about who really controls things in the music business, and whether loyalty is just a show. But Beanie's not acting like a victim. He owns up to his mistakes, including legal trouble that hurt his career. Still, he's saying clearly, Jay's moves weren't just business. They were calculated. It wasn't bad timing. It was about control and power. He's basically saying, even when I had the streets behind me, even when I was on fire, something always stepped in to hold me back. And now we might finally know what or who that was.
Dame actually came and got me when I got out of prison. And we was on a tour bus and they was interviewing me. And they asked me then and there on a bus. Now I'm just getting out of prison. Like he at the jail picked me up, and they posed that question that I was, you know, or made the statement that I was going to be with Dame Dash Music Group. And I said then that I didn't want to make that choice. I believe if we had those conversations, I believe I would have rolled with Dame. I'd have rocked with Dame. Yeah, if Dame set me down and he had a plan, regardless what the plan was, and mapped it out like this was he going to do.
Beanie Sigel was locked in, focused, and right on the edge of blowing up, but every time he got close, something always seemed to get in the way. Now he's saying that wasn't by chance. According to him, JayZ was quietly pulling strings behind the scenes to keep the spotlight off him. But this isn't just some bitter rant. What makes it hit harder is that Beanie's not running from his own mistakes. He admits he messed up in some ways, but he's still standing by the claim that Jay was secretly making moves to hold him back. And that changes everything. When someone takes responsibility for their past but still calls someone out, it hits different. It makes you wonder what was really going on behind closed doors at Roc-A-Fella. Let's be real. If Beanie's telling the truth, it flips JayZ's whole chess master image upside down. It wasn't just about outsmarting rivals. He might have been playing games with his own team. And that's not just business. That's betrayal dressed in a suit and tie.
The smartest decision at that time for me would have rolled with Dame, because Dame was more accessible than Jay was. Dame was in the office every day. You could talk to Dame. You know what I mean? Dame used to come and chill on the block in South Philly. You know what I mean? Dame pull up and bags at Mom Dude spot. So yeah, I think if we would have sat and he would have showed me and explained to me, you know, our business plan and what we was going to do, that would have been an easy decision.
Let's take it back for a minute. In the late 90s, Roc-A-Fella was on fire, but they needed something raw, something real. Then in 99, Beanie Sigel stepped in and everything changed. He wasn't just another rapper in the background. He was the missing piece. When The Truth dropped in 2000, it hit like a bomb. The streets were all over it. Critics had to pay attention, and Roc-A-Fella looked unstoppable. But this wasn't supposed to be just another record deal. It wasn't sold as just business. It was pitched as family. And Beanie, he bought into that 100%. He put in serious work, grinding nonstop. We're talking about driving back and forth from Philly to NYC every week. No hotel rooms, no fancy treatment. Just a studio couch to crash on and a trunk full of clothes, ready to go. That hustle was real, especially during those iconic Dynasty album sessions. Beanie wasn't just showing up, he was going all in.
I don't think one man can destroy another man's life. It's ultimately in your decisions. You know, I had a lot of issues, but I said legal issues at the time, and you know, my mind wasn't where I'm at now today. Like, I used to have questions like why every time my album dropped, Jay would drop right on top. He wouldn't let me breathe, or right before me, like I was always close. And I never understood that every single album that I dropped, Jay dropped right on top. And it was like, damn. Like, to have in-house competition at that magnitude is crazy. Jay already the boss, but I always thought that, like me.
Every time JayZ dropped a verse, Beanie was right there, locked in, pen moving, matching energy and helping build a legacy. He wasn't just a side act. He was part of the engine that helped shape the Roc-A-Fella sound. Back then, young Beanie Sigel truly believed he had found his crew, his people. When you hear him talk about those early days now, you can still feel how real that belief was. He thought what he had with Jay wasn't just about music. It felt like a bond, a brotherhood.
Weapons violations, attempted
They trying to get a boy 20 to 40 years. They came to me with a deal. Their deal was 18 to 36 years. Of course, I turned it down. Thought this was America, people. Guilty until proven innocent.
But now, looking back, Beanie says that trust might have been his biggest mistake. That belief in loyalty and unity is what hit him the hardest when it all fell apart. Coming out of South Philly, a place where betrayal isn't just common, it's expected, he thought Roc-A-Fella was his way out. He used to say, "This is the first real thing I've ever been a part of." And now, when he says it again, his voice shakes, and it hits different. Because the streets he came from were cold. The kind of place where someone might pray with you in the morning and set you up by night. Loyalty that was like gold, rare and priceless. So when Beanie found what felt like La Familia at Roc-A-Fella, he held on tight. To him, this wasn't just about music. It was everything, his passion, his purpose, and the only place that ever felt like home. He wasn't thinking about contracts or career moves. None of that mattered. He just wanted to belong.
So at that time, when, I'm going to court, and we about to be on tour. We on tour. So a whole nother tour. Yeah, we on a whole nother tour. So, I'm going for my bail hearing in the feds. And the judge asked Jay, everybody's saying all these good things and all that. The character witnesses, Dame, and everybody's saying, and even Jay said a whole lot of good things about me, and the judge was gonna let me go. Monitor. And she said, would you be willing, and that's the part that people don't have, would you be willing to be responsible for his whereabouts, not be responsible for my actions, just his whereabouts.
In Beanie's mind, he had found his tribe. They got me, he used to say, believing his whole team just wanted him to focus on the music while they handled the business side. And in the early 2000s, he was on fire. State Property wasn't just a rap group. It was becoming a full-blown movement. Clothing line? Check. Movies? Check. Beanie was building something bigger than rap. It felt real, like his legacy was finally taking shape. But then 2004 hit, like a wrecking ball. The tension between JayZ and Dame Dash was reaching its breaking point, and Beanie got caught right in the middle. A man who lived by loyalty suddenly found a foundation he trusted falling apart from the inside out. That's what it really means to be stuck between a rock and a hard place. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, the feds came knocking. Heavy charges. Serious time. We're talking decades behind bars. Prosecutors threw a wild deal at him. 18 to 36 years. Let that sink in. That's not just prison time. That's your whole life gone. Of course, Beanie said no. He chose to fight. But here's where it gets heartbreaking. While he was in court, battling for his freedom, the same Roc-A-Fella family he helped build, they were out on tour, living the good life. Meanwhile, Beanie stood in front of a judge, clinging to hope, with character witnesses stepping up, trying to speak on his behalf.
Would you be willing to do that? Provide us with all the information, saying that he's going to be here, there. And after all that good, and he said no. But it was like the way he said it, and he put his head down, he was like, no, I've never been crushed like that ever in my life. Cause I'm like, damn, this is my man, like and I looked at it like, all right, no. What if I had to get the in? I'm in jail, I'm still tall, but what if I really needed to go? This was going in my mind. Like, get out of jail, you say? Bro, I had attempted.
Dame Dash spoke up. Others vouched for Beanie too. Even JayZ stood up and said a few kind words. For a moment, it looked like things might turn around. The judge was actually considering letting Beanie out on house arrest. It felt like maybe, just maybe, he was about to catch a break. Then came the question, the one that changed everything. The judge turned to JayZ and asked one simple thing. Would you be willing to keep track of where he is? Not be responsible for what Beanie did. not take any blame, just know his schedule, just let the court know where he'd be. After everything they'd been through, the music, the brotherhood, the loyalty, Jay looked down and said one cold word. No. When Beanie tells that story now, the pain still cuts through his voice. I've never been crushed like that, he says, and you can feel it. Imagine sitting in court, chained up, looking at the man you considered your brother, the man you gave everything for, and he won't even lift a finger to help you breathe again. That no didn't just hurt, it shattered the whole La Familia dream. Right there, in that courtroom, Beanie realized a love he believed in might have never been real. Just smoke and mirrors. And still, even behind bars, he tried to stay solid, tried to stay loyal, tried to hold it down. But deep down, his mind was spinning.
And in the state, and the federal gun charge, and all this, though, 40 years is over. This is I'm facing 40 years. What if and my mom thinking like, damn, what if I really need to roll? Be on a run and go. Like, I'm from like, this my man and I love you. If he skipped up, I'm getting my man, I'm getting him out by any means necessary. So, for me to look him in his eyes and I'm sitting, I'm shackled around the wrist, ankles and everything, and the man was like, oh. Like, that was I don't know, like, that was just, that it took everything in me not to like let him go. Like, that took away a lot of I thought that we had. Like, that's big.
He's sitting there, facing 40 years, and he starts asking himself what the roles were reversed. And he already knew the answer. He wouldn't even hesitate. He'd ride out for Jay without thinking twice, because that's just how Beanie was built. Now, compare that to Dame Dash. Dame was pulling up to court before sunrise, dealing with busted tires and all, just to make sure his guy wasn't standing alone. He's our brother. Dame kept saying, and he meant it. Meanwhile, what was Jay doing while Beanie was in shackles? Jay was dropping the Black Album, talking about retiring and playing power games in the industry like it was a chessboard. The contrast couldn't have been louder. In 2005, The Becoming dropped, and it was fire, one of Beanie's hardest projects, recorded while he was fighting the case of his life. But where was the support? Where was the so-called brotherhood? Nowhere to be found. Instead of backing him up, stories started to surface about artists barely getting paid, having to split $1,250 from a show, while the top dogs walked away with stacks of cash. It was wild. By 2009, Beanie had held all that pain in for too long, and finally he snapped. What You Talking About wasn't just a diss track. It was a full-on emotional unload. Years of silence, years of being ghosted by someone he thought would never turn their back. All of that came spilling out in bars that hit like gut punches. The streets felt it. They saw the truth. Loyalty in this industry isn't loud. It shows up when it matters most. One man was there every single day, dealing with flat tires and early mornings, showing real love. The other couldn't even co-sign where his own artist would be. That's all you need to know about who was solid and who wasn't. But things took a turn for the crazy. Let's talk about what went down at Powerhouse. This part? Straight up wild. Beanie wasn't even there, and somehow, rumors started flying that he was a threat to JayZ. The Philadelphia Daily News ran a whole story about it, talking about how Jay got into it with security over fear of retaliation from Beanie. They had 9 units patrolling the venue. Security was doubled up. The whole place was on edge, all because of whispers from inside sources, saying Beanie was going to show up and cause trouble. Even boxing legend Bernard Hopkins, who was there that night, confirmed it. The energy was tense. Security was on high alert, and the name on everybody's lips was Beanie. You can still find the receipts. It's all out there, fully documented on allhiphop.com.
In the house for house arrest, and I got the young gun calling my phone because JayZ's only paying them $1,205 $50 or whatever it is, $1,200 a show, when they had to split it at the end of the day, like shows where we went on his was supposed to be promos, but checks, man, that he was making, but it was just that's us paying dues. It was a good look. So all the glitz and glamours wasn't like really what people seen.
And just when you think it couldn't get messier, it does Beanie pulls up to another event, and guess who rolls in? Glee, one of Jay's people, deep with 5 bodyguards. They start pressing Beanie, trying to get him to walk into the back room to talk with Jay. But Beanie wasn't falling for it. He was alone, and he wasn't about to walk into some setup with a squad of security waiting. He looked him dead in the face and said, "Big homie, don't know me." Straight like that. No fear, just facts. Now, here's where things go to a whole new level of shady. Jay finally gets asked about all this drama in an interview. Perfect chance to clear the air, right? Say something real. Set the record straight. Nah, he dodges everything. Doesn't touch a single one of the actual events. Doesn't mention the article. Doesn't deny the security drama. Nothing. Instead, Jay plays it off like Beanie's just bitter and ungrateful. And his big defense? Beanie had 2 Bentleys at the time. Seriously? That's the angle he's going with? Beanie's laying out detailed stories backed by dates, news reports, and witnesses, and Jay responds like, "Yeah, but I bought him cars." That's like being called out for betrayal and replying with, "But I gave you birthday gifts." Weak. Then Jay hits him with the numbers. 800,000 records sold. Try make it sound like Beanie should just smile and stay silent. Classic deflection. Jay starts listing everything he gave Beanie. A record deal, a label, a clothing line. But here's the thing. That's not the issue. The issue is the loyalty, the trust, the brotherhood. And that's the part Jay never addresses.
My question is, did Jay really call up them people? Just need to know to add them to the infested extermination list.
Listen, before I even got there to the building, you gotta understand this. It's all documented. This year's Powerhouse, Jay came last year. In the Philadelphia Daily News, the day after the Powerhouse, it had an article. And I didn't even go to the Powerhouse last year. It had an article in it. Inside sources say JayZ beefs up security and threat that retaliation from Beanie Sigel for dropping him from the label.
This was in the newspaper.
It's in the paper. It's public record. Go. It's $20. You can search it and find it. It's public record. That was last year. So when I'm reading this, like, damn, what the?
But here's the thing. That's not the point. It ain't about what was given. It's about what was silently taken. The moves made behind the curtain. The opportunities that mysteriously vanished. This whole mess shines a brutal light on how shallow some industry relationships really are. JayZ thought tossing a Bentley or 2 could buy loyalty. But Beanie wasn't looking for material things. He was looking for something real, a bond, a brotherhood. What we're seeing here is a straight-up showdown between money and principles. And when it comes down to it, it's clear who valued what. But here's the wild part. Jay still got fans wrapped around his fingers so tight, they'll defend anything. The denial runs deep. One person on X fired off. These dudes get on interviews and just start lying. Nobody calls him out. JayZ changed that man's life. And just because he won't take the blame for his own reckless choices. Now he wants to act like Jay ruined his career. That's disgusting. Another chimed in, pointing right back to that courtroom moment. This all started because Jay refused to be responsible for Beanie's whereabouts while he was facing serious charges. Beans had a career, a family, and he threw it all away because he couldn't let go of the streets. He ignored Jay's advice, kept making bad choices, and now wants sympathy. And the criticism didn't stop there. They keep talking about betrayal. But look at what Beanie did. He turned on Jay publicly, dropped his records, badmouthed him in interviews, and even linked up with 50 Cent, all to clown Jay and question his character. But not everyone's falling for the narrative. One fan clapped back with the timeline, pointing out that the only time Beanie's and Jay's albums dropped close together was during a 2-month gap. Still, others weren't letting Jay off the hook. One person wrote, "Yeah, but back in that era, you didn't just drop a song and move on. You worked on your music for months, sometimes years, and pushed it hard. So yeah, 2 months was a big deal. It did mess with the momentum.
I mean, inside sources say.
Right.
Where that come from? I ain't never see the powerhouse where they got boot cops walking around with K9s and go on the internet, Google it. Bernard Hopkins was there. I didn't even know Bernard was there.
Right.
Go to allhiphop.com. He confirms it.
So there you are, just like the song says.
Yeah,
front
what
row.
happened was, I stood right in the, and because they made suites. When I came in the building and people was going in the back and all that, where the dressing rooms was at, we was standing in the back, me and my peoples or whatever. We come out with 5 bodyguards. What's up, C? No, what's going on? Damn, what's up? What you doing? Who back there, Jay? Come on, let's go back there. And you keep on moving the conversation. You don't want to go back there. Your bodyguard's there, and I don't got no, you know what I mean, the pass. He was like, man, you need to come holler at the big hump, man. Dude, don't me. I ain't going back there. That's what I told him. Big homie.
So yeah, a 2-month gap mattered back then. That wasn't just a little delay. In the early 2000s, dropping around the same time as another big artist could step on your whole rollout. Today, it's all about same-day drops, but that wasn't how the game worked back then. If you were coming up under a giant like Jay, that timing could make or break you. But let's pause. This ain't just a Beanie Sigel story anymore. This is where things really start heating up. And it turns out Beanie isn't the only one with a tale to tell. There's a whole lineup of legends who've called Jay out for similar moves. Let's talk about DMX. X dropped a bomb when he exposed how Jay played him behind the scenes. According to DMX, Jay's whole retirement back then was just a power move. First, Jay steps down, then he makes sure X gets booted off the label. Then, surprise, Jay unretires and jumps back into spotlight. Too smooth to be coincidence, right? Then there's Dame Dash. We already know his story runs deep, but even Kanye West has hinted at shady business. Different voices, different stories, but the theme? It's always the same. Jay moving like a chess master, but not always with good intentions.
Beanie Sigel is complaining a lot these days.
Well, he has a lot to complain
I know.
Not me.
Well, actually, this morning I just got a brand new interview. It's half an hour long, and he's talking basically about you, about the company, about basically how you didn't push him as much as, let's say, 50 Cent push some of his boys. How do you feel about that?
Well, Beanie Sigel at the time, and you can look it up if you like, but just to be honest, was driving 2 Bentleys. I don't know how. It's impossible to drive 2 cars at one time. With his mama in the sticks and selling 800,000 records. I don't know what more can you do for somebody, at that point. What people choose to do when they attain that type of a success, at some point you have to look in the mirror and look at.
And it doesn't stop with artists. When you bring in names like Irv Gotti and Suge Knight, the picture gets even bigger. These were guys trying to create something major, a black-owned distribution powerhouse. That move could have changed the whole industry. But guess what? It never happened. It got derailed. And guess who people are whispering about? Jay and his ties to key players like Lenore. When you zoom out and line up all these stories, it stops sounding like random drama. It starts looking like a blueprint, a pattern, a playbook. This whole piece with Suge Knight's vision shows exactly what was on the line and why some folks might have wanted it shut down fast. Suge wasn't just pushing another business move. He was aiming for something revolutionary, a full-on union for hip-hop artists. We're talking real benefits, healthcare, retirement plans, protection, everything. At the 2002 West Coast Hip Hop Summit, he laid the blueprint out for everyone to see. And honestly, the plan was genius. Labels would front the union dues as part of the recording budget, and artists would simply repay it through sales, just like they already do with advances. Clean, simple, fair. It could have flipped the entire structure of the music industry and finally put artists in a position of power. But now, here's where it starts tying into all this JayZ drama and those so-called chess moves we've been hearing about.
People want to have a union. How many people want to get together and say, okay, we want to network? You got a deal at Universal and your points is too low. You got a deal at Universal and they got 100% of your publishing. You got a deal at Sony and you don't own your masters, but it's your artist. Now, I'll tell you one other thing before you guys go. You really know what's going on. It's real plain and simple. A lot of record companies tell you that at the end of the day, you have the right to buy your master.
It seems like this piece really ties together some intricate details and connections, painting a much larger picture control within the music industry. JayZ and Diddy aren't just portrayed as influential figures. They're part of a wider system that allegedly involves using connections to maintain power and prevent any real shifts that could favor artists. With all these accusations and alleged ties to federal informants and shady business moves, it's clear that there's more at play than just personal rivalries. This isn't just about Beanie Sigel or DMX. It's about the potential for artists to break free from a system designed to hold them down. The union proposal from Suge Knight, it could have changed everything for the industry by giving artists more control, better protection, and independence, something that could have flipped the game entirely. But according to these stories, that was shut down by two of the biggest names in the game, possibly for reasons tied to maintaining the status quo. When you tie in all the alleged behind-the-scenes moves, like the connections of federal ties and figures like Lure Cohen and Desiree Perez, the conspiracy looks bigger than just a few broken relationships. If it's true that these figures played a role in sabotaging the union, it makes you question how deep the manipulation goes in the music business. The Bentleys, the deals, the records sold, they start to feel like small distractions compared to what could have been for the artists had they been empowered with a union, control of their masters, and true independence. It's crazy how all these pieces seem to fit together, showing the lengths some might go to in order to keep the power in their hands, keeping the real control out of the hands of creators.
When Puff, Kurt Burrows, that's the other person that was with them, they go up to the feds with all this paperwork, you understand? And I mentioned this before, you understand? They not only talking about the extortion stuff, they talking about how they trying to be made to, and to have this what you call this promotion, this distribution thing.
This really starts to unravel a whole other layer of the story. If JayZ is allegedly part of the system that's been manipulating the industry, it could explain why he's always positioned himself as the go-to person when things go south for other artists. It's not just about helping them out. There's a much bigger web of connections behind the scenes, with Desiree Perez being one of the key figures. Her involvement in situations like Lil Wayne's legal troubles or Meek Mill's battles suggests that Roc Nation isn't just a business. It's a network that can pull strings and potentially control outcomes in the industry. Now, when you bring in Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, that takes things even deeper. His claims about seeing paperwork that links Diddy to federal cooperation raises serious questions about what's really going on behind the curtain. If these moves were part of a broader plan to shut down a potential black-owned distribution company, that shifts the narrative. It's no longer just about personal beef or industry power games. It's about preventing real change, stifling competition, and making sure the system stays in place. This paints JayZ and Diddy as more than just players. They might be the ones keeping everything in check, not as victims of the system, but as architects of it. The idea that Jay is part of this whole strategy, rather than a target, changes the way we look at his career and influence in the industry. If he's tied to these covert operations, it suggests that his role in the game was never just about music. It was always about control.